All right, so we want to review a little bit about what we've gone over. We started, just talking about why you would even want a GPS and maybe trying to help the people that are GPS haters understand that, it's not just something that makes you take wrong turns and you get frustrated. And then we were taking a look at, the pros and cons of motorcycle specific versus auto versus people that might be using mobile phones. And then we dropped into how to install, where to install, touched a little bit on fuse blocks and some wiring, and took a look at some different locations for GPS. So after 2 weeks, are there any questions or anything you think we need to dig into further? And we can unmute all if somebody wants to just ask a question. Okay. All right. So now we're.
Now, I can't unmute everybody, Steve. Everybody has to unmute one at a time. When I try to unmute, it just mutes. So that's all the only option.
Okay. Well, if anybody has a question, certainly the chat, we wanted to use the chat anyway. So let's just put your questions up there.
If everybody behaves and stays on mute, I'll leave the mute unlocked. Just it does get noisy when people leave their mics open, and it makes it really hard to conduct it. So,
okay. So now we're going to be jumping into the actual operation of the Zumo XT, and Steve and I both experimented a little bit with trying to use a camera to actually show you our units. Steve has the XT and I have the 595. So Steve actually put together some nice slides. So he's going to carry most of this tonight. So go ahead, Steve.
All right. So let's step in. I would say I've gone through many GPSs, all Garmin's. The Zumo so far is my favorite. I'm finding it really nice to use, and I haven't found all the functionality yet, but I'm getting there. But I just wanted to step through those who are beginners. I want to step through some of the main features, some of the configuration, some of the use cases using the Zumo. These will probably be very similar to many of the newer Garmin units. The same user interface, a very similar user interface. So you should be able to extrapolate information and go there. So this is the Zumo main screen, home screen, whatever you want to call it. This is the typical view in daylight mode. So the display can be in either daylight mode or night mode or light mode and dark mode, however you want to call it. I typically leave my GPS in automatic. So when it sees sunset, it flips over to night mode. And when it sees sunrise, it flips over. And I'll show you how to do that when we get into it. But this is the typical layout for the home screen. It is not adjustable. What I want to do is go through the icons that are on the main screen, because a lot of these icons also could be buttons that will get you into some of the prime functions that you would commonly use when you're on a trip. So the first thing is that the XT will work in either landscape mode or portrait mode, and it all depends on the orientation that you put it in. It will automatically flip. So it depends on how you want to mount it on your bike. You rotate it, and it will automatically flip the screen. I'm a landscape guy right now because that's just the way all my GPSs have been, but I'm planning on trying it in the portrait mode. I just don't think it's going to fit on my bike without interfering with the windscreen in the down position. Right, so we're going to start at the top left of the GPS and go through the icons. So this is the GPS signal status. This is the satellite signal and how well the receiver is picking up the satellites and the signal strength. If you press and hold that icon for 3 seconds, you'll get the satellite acquisition screen. And this will give you an idea of what satellites you're seeing or your device is seeing, and the signal strength, and which particular GPS satellites it's picking up. So this is in what they call the acquiring satellites screen. So this is before your GPS has actually got a lock. And if you'll know what I'm talking about, a lock is once the GPS has gotten a minimum of 3 satellites, like we talked about on the first night, then it's going to be able to know be able to determine its location, its speed, and its elevation. So, but until it gets a lock on at least 3, it's acquiring satellites, and that could take seconds to minutes, depending on if it's cold starting or warm starting, the GPS itself, or how strong the signal is. Once it's acquired, you get into the lock mode, and it'll start displaying the information on this screen. You don't need to go to the screen. I'm just showing that it's available. All right. When you're in many screens, on the upper left-hand side will be the 3 bars, and those 3 bars will open up an option menu that would be available for any particular function or configuration that you're in. In this case, pressing the option would bring us to a GPS graph view. And just to show how that works, if I clicked on the GPS graph view button right there on the menu, it will go into the graph mode. One thing I'll point out, and if you look at the upper right-hand corner of my screen right here, when I created these images, I used a feature in the GPS called screenshot mode. And it then puts this subdued button up here. And when you click it, it'll take a snapshot of the screen that you're showing. So if for some reason you want to show somebody something, you can go into your configuration, turn on screenshot mode, and then you can take pictures. The images will end up being in a folder on your GPS. Right. Returning back to the main screen, coming over is the active usage mode. And basically this is the transportation setting, whether it's in auto mode or motorcycle mode. Clicking on it gives you the config screen to allow you to choose. Off-road is an option. Can't tell you what it does because me and the Connie don't go off-road. Next one is the Bluetooth status and settings. So if Bluetooth is connected, it will light up, but generally, if you click it, it'll go into the settings mode. It'll bring you to the settings, right to the Bluetooth. And from here, you can click on Bluetooth, you can enable it, or go down the Bluetooth settings for whatever you need to do. In this particular settings screen, if the settings over here are black, like they are down here for the Scala Rider, that means that that device is not connected. So in this case, the Scala Rider for music and for headset are not connected, but the smartphone services, the iPhone services, both music and Garmin Drive, are connected. So it gives you an idea, if you look at it at a glance, it can tell you what's going on your device with your connection. Somebody had asked about that. Next is the current time, but it also is used as a time set by clicking it. If you need to change it, you've got your temperature, but that also brings you to the weather forecast if you click it. And it'll always start with the current location temperature, but bringing up the menu is a quick way to get to the weather radar alerts and road conditions.
Hey, Steve, question for you. The weather and some of those functions, you have to have the app running. Yeah, the phone running.
To get weather and traffic information, you do need to have the smartphone connected using Garmin Drive.
And there's no subscription for that part, right? Maybe for
that's
traffic.
free. Yep. Okay. Using Garmin Drive and the data it provides, you're getting data from your cell phone. That's a free service, which is kind of neat. All right. So talking about Garmin Drive, that's the Garmin Drive connection status symbol. And when it lights up, it will show that it's connected. We've got our Wi-Fi signal strength because the Zoom Mode XT is Wi-Fi compatible. So if you set it up to connect to a Wi-Fi network, say at home, it will then display that you've got Wi-Fi connectivity. And if you click it, you'll go into its settings. And one of the really nice features of the XT with Wi-Fi is to be able to update maps and software. So you don't necessarily need to connect it to the computer to do it. You just have to plug it into a power source and then use the Wi-Fi, connect up, it'll check for updates and it'll do a download. It's definitely faster and more convenient than using Garmin Express. Yeah, if anybody's got any questions, just post them up or shout them out.
Steve, are you going to cover the gas? Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's something Steve doesn't use, but it's actually something I use because, especially on the C14, if anybody remembers Brian Felice, he had that gas warning eliminator gadget. And basically the C14's display went crazy when you needed gas and you couldn't run that last 30 miles without losing functionality to your screen and having to press buttons and hold one in for so many seconds, press the other one. So anyway, I just run the gas countdown on there and it throws me an alert when I get down to 200 miles on the tank. And then I know it's like my last warning for gas. Because the C14 won't warn me anymore.
Yeah. So, and I don't have that device in there, but I use my Trip A on my C14 as my tank-to-tank mileage, and I know about where I would need to get fuel. I also do watch the fuel gauge. I don't use this. I may try it, but it's just one more thing to me that I need to configure and remember to use. And I started setting it up, as you can see, 200 miles per tank. That's about average, but I've really never used it on a trip. I may try it just to say that I've done it.
Yeah, Steve, they actually warn you when you're running the tank function. If you stop, it asks you if you've stopped for gas, and you just say yes or no.
Okay.
So you don't really have to remember to do it. It kind of reminds you to reset it.
Yeah. So there's a question on how do you connect to the home Wi-Fi? It's really simple. You go to the Wi-Fi settings screen, you click the button that says search for networks, you select your home network, and then you're going to enter in your passphrase. If you enter in all the correct information, it will connect. It's just that easy. And you got to make sure that the Wi-Fi is enabled. And then once you've connected, it'll actually remember your home network so that anytime you're there, it'll connect up when you're in the house. Yeah, Dave, easy, right? Even an attorney can handle it. All right. Lastly, on the top to the right, we've got our battery charge level. It will act as a battery gauge as your battery is drained. Right now, it's showing a full battery. It'll also show you if it's charging. So if you've got it plugged in, you'll get the charge symbol on there. It does not show time to full, or it does not indicate how close you are to a full charge. It just shows charging. At least not that I've seen or that I've noticed. I will tell you that when I'm riding, it's plugged into the station, the mount. It's always powered up. The only time I'm really running on battery is if I'm in a motel room, talking outside with the bike turned off, or doing something like this. I'll have it sitting on the desk with the power not plugged in, because when the plug is in the back, the GPS won't sit flat on the desk. On the bottom, we've got the stop active route button. It'll be grayed out unless you're running a route, right? So if you've got some destination programmed in, then that will become a red button that you could hit. We've got the track recorder function, which is kind of neat if you want to track where you're going. You can open up that and you'd hit start, and then it's just forcing a track to be recorded. Typically, tracks are recorded automatically, but this is if you want to do it specifically on a start and stopping of a beginning and end of a track. And we'll cover tracks some other time, because I think it makes more sense to see it when we connect up to Basecamp, because you actually can look at the tracks there. Then we have the music. One of my favorite parts of this, because if I'm on a trip, I got the music playing really softly in the background, and the intercom will always come in over that. So if somebody wants to talk to me, or bike to bike, or phone, or any other messages or directions, it'll subdue the music so I can hear everything else. This is the music player, and I use music off of my iPhone. I used to, on my old Garmin, used to put MP3s in the Garmin, but I change up my music in my phone every so often, and it's one less thing I have to do updating the GPS music. I just manage my phone, and I can play whatever's on there. And my favorite music tends to be on the phone, and I change it like once a month, once every 2 months, something like that. But you can pick your source. There are different options for source. So you can have your phone connected. You could also pick the GPS for source. There are other options. I forget what they are. But it's very simple to use. Apps. So this is an interesting one, Steve. Let's put the poll up regarding apps, and see how many people are familiar with Garmin apps, because they've been putting apps. Can you start the poll, Steve? There you go. Thanks. So Garmin has had apps on their GPSs for the last couple of generations. And I'm just curious to see how many people have actually used some apps. And creating routes and actually following routes that you load on there is an app. But I see many people have never done it. Good. All right. Good to know. So I'll tailor what we do around that and keep it at the newbie level. Nice.
Okay, I want to know who the three that are darn good. So
yeah,
we can certainly pick your brains, because I want to learn.
Yeah,
I want to learn some stuff.
Insights. Yeah, if you're one of the darn good folks, post up in the chat area, and we may pick your brains or let you offer some context in there. You may know stuff that we don't know. All right. Can everybody see the results? I don't know if were they shared.
I thought I shared them. If nobody saw them, I guess I didn't. So here.
There we go. So there, you just shared it out, so everybody could see what the results were. And we'll get rid of that and move on. All right. So I'm not going to show all the apps now, but this is the app screen. At least what it looks like on my GPS. What's really nifty, and you could scroll down here, or by hitting the down and up arrows, or use your finger to drag up and down. What's really nice about the apps display is that you can organize the apps any way you want. And I tend to put the ones that I use more often on the top of the fold, right? To use a newspaper term, right? I put those on the first screen that I see. And you can see what I feel are the important ones, right? I will use a phone, especially if I'm traveling. The wife may try to contact me, or I need to find somebody. So I don't want to have to be hunting for these things. So same thing with owner's manual. If I need to figure out how to do something with the GPS, those are my top two. Trip planner, radar. Smart notifications is a function when it's connected up to my phone. So typically, if there's emails or text messages, they'll come over to the GPS and they'll go into the smart notifications area. Weather, tracks, and traffic. Those are the ones that I'm generally going to use if I'm going to apps. Trip Planner and Radar typically are the top two while riding. Traffic is I found I don't need as much, because as long as it's running in the background, it'll actually give me alerts.
And I'll add that if you're doing your base camp right, you don't run into traffic.
Yeah. Sure. All right, volume. There's several settings under the volume settings, but there is a master volume which controls everything, right, up and down. So, and then there's a mixer, and the mixer allows you to adjust which sections have what amount of volume, right? So alert tones, navigation prompts, music, you could set those to different levels of your master mix, and then the master volume just will control it up and down from wherever you set each individual setting. It's a nice feature to have. I tend to run with my spoken navigation turned off. I don't like it constantly interrupting my music. I know where I'm going. Most of the times I know the directions. I know kind of in my head, I have a good idea, even if I've never traveled it. And we'll talk about this when we get to base camp and navigation. I usually have a route sheet as a backup. So I always know what my next turn is. I just need to know when it's coming up. And I can glance to the GPS and see it's coming up in 5 miles, coming up in 1 mile, whatever it is. And I don't need to have it interrupt me. I'll do it when I want. Last is the settings. And when there are updates pending, you'll get that little blue down arrow. Steve, no, when I have Bluetooth on, I think I could still get master. I'll have to try it next time, but I'm pretty sure maybe you're right. All right, so no, you still have master controls, but the Bluetooth will also control master if your Bluetooth has volume settings, and it connects.
Yeah, I've found that maybe there's a way around this, but the maximum setting on the Garmin is the maximum setting on your phone. So if your volume's medium, you get 0 to medium.
Right.
So it's something you have to remember, crank up your volume before you go out riding.
The mixer, as I explained before, allows you to set different volume levels for different audio features of the GPS. So when you go into mixer, you'll see what settings for your GPS, if you've got a mixer, that you can control. So what are some of the things? Music is one, navigation prompts is another, alert tones is another, right? So, all right. So settings, I do want to get into settings, but not right now. I will dive in to that later. There's so many settings in here, and we'll get to them as we need to. I just really want to do a broad overview. As I mentioned, you're not going to always see this blue arrow. That's only when there are any updates pending, software or map updates. Then the main two buttons. There's the Where To button, which we'll do some live stuff, but Where To is how you select a destination point to navigate to, right? So if you click the Where To, this is the screen you're going to get. If you've got your home set, you click Go Home, it will navigate the home. If you want to look up a street address, you click the address button. Saved are for any waypoints that have been saved to the GPS, either by saving them on the GPS or ones that have been downloaded from Basecamp. Recent would be any recent searches that were done or any recent waypoints that were used. And then you go into other things where you can look up categories like food and fuel. And these are ones you can deal with and look at on your own. And you can adjust this menu and put the important thing towards the top. I would tell you that I very rarely use categories, explore, and anything that's below this.
Yeah, and for the recents, here's how I use that. if there's a cog ride and let's say it starts at a Sheetz or a convenience store in some town, and I really don't want to go to the trouble of putting in the address and saving it and naming it, I'll just punch in the address and say go. And then when I, start my ride and I get close, then I'll just pop up the recent and it'll be right there. And then I'll use that to nav.
Right. Recents are ones that you've navigated to. So if you just search for it, but didn't hit the go button to start the nav, it won't stay in recent. And I've done the same thing that Steve's done. When I'm stopped, I'll know, I want to look up an address that I'm going to use later. I may do it while I'm stopped or home, get it into recent. It's a fast way to do it without having to connect up to the computer to download. All right. The next big button is the view map button. It's pretty obvious. It lets you view the map. The map has a bunch of settings on there as well. To the left, we've got the zoom in and zoom out button. We've got the back button. So this will bring us back. Whenever you see this curved arrow like this is a back button that'll bring you to the previous screen. So here it'll bring us back to the home screen. Our miles per hour, our direction or compass, our layers, our current position, and you could choose what icon you want. I'm not crazy personally about using a car or a motorcycle icon. I like a triangle or an arrow or something that's easily identifiable and that I could see which is the front and the rear without having to look at a graphic, a car or a motorcycle. I mean, on a quick glance, this is much easier to tell which is the direction I'm going and which is the front, right?
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I think the little motorcycle's cool.
Yeah, well, it is cool.
You can choose whether it's a cruiser or a sport bike. Or,
yeah, this is a personal preference thing, and they got a gold triangle and they got a blue triangle, and I think you could load even your own symbols in if you want to figure out how to do that. So questions on the screen stuff, and then on the main screen and some of that we were there. I have no idea what's missing in others other than that what the XT has and others don't. The last GPS I had was a 660. I know that it had a few of the same apps, but quite honestly, I only used one. And that was the one to use routes that were downloaded.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Steve, do you know any that are specific to the XT that the others don't have?
Yeah, well, I'm watching you run through that. That's the first good look at an XT that I've had, because I've had currently have a 590 on one motorcycle, 595 on another. They're similar. I'm a little jealous because some of the things I always wanted to do, they now improve. Like moving those apps around is a big deal. Like the ones you use the most at the top.
Yeah.
With the 595, you're kind of stuck with where they are, and I haven't found a way to move them around. There's some different features within the 595 that I think they abandoned, like they had a nice tire pressure monitor system, and I don't think that's available anymore on the XT. But it's much slicker. I think the XT is better than the 595.
Yeah. All right. So what I want to do, and I know, so Dave, your question about where to find the symbols, it's in the configuration settings. So let's quickly run through some screens.
Steve, I think you want to stop sharing your screen so your video becomes dominant.
How's that? That help?
Now we don't see, now we don't see your video. So you need to share your video or go back to presentation mode.
No,
maybe it's just my view.
Maybe it's just you. Can
everybody else
see my video? Can you see the GPS on the display? Somebody shake their head yes or no. Okay, good. Thank you. All right. So this is dark mode, right? This is that night mode that I was talking about. It comes up naturally on mine. If I want to change this,
I
I'm going to
figured
go
it
to
out, Steve.
settings. Right now, let's look at the settings. This is the settings screen. All the settings are here. They're grouped, fairly intuitive. Right, the top one is updates. So anything about maps, software, and more that you're going to update on your GPS, you would go into that screen. Right. The first thing it's going to do is see if there's any updates. Right. There are no updates. It's telling me that everything's up to date. So I'm just going to go out of that. All right. Map and vehicle. So for Dave, you were asking what vehicle, the icon to show on the map. Look at that right there. It says icon to show on map. And it'll give you a choice. What do you want? And then you could scroll through left and right, and then save the one that you want. The color is a little bit washed out, but that one right there that's spinning is the gold one that you saw on my map before. Driving view. Just like other Garmin units, you could do track up, north up, and 3D. The difference, north up will always give you a map with north up, like a standard map, all right? So north is up, east to the right, west to the left, south bottom. Track up is whatever direction you're heading, that the map will be up in the direction that you're going, right? So if you're heading north, north will be at the top. If you're heading west, west will be at the top. I'm not a fan of track up because I don't want the map continually rotating. As I said, I've got something in my mind. I know kind of where I'm going. I know that I'm supposed to be heading west or south. I know what roads I expect to be on. I've studied maps. I've had paper maps out. I've been looking at Google Maps. Track up, it messes with my head. And I want to see a north up standard map view when I'm using it. I can figure out what direction I'm going by looking at the map. 3D gives you that goofy 3D view that a lot of GPS can provide. Again, I don't think you get the level of detail because the stuff that's close to you is bigger. The stuff that's farther away looks smaller. I can control that view by zooming in or out. And again, this is just personal preference, whatever you want to do. And then one of the others is auto zoom to group. I don't use this. That's I will have auto zoom set, but in the north up mode. All right. Map detail. You could choose how much detail you want shown on the GPS display. I want it all. Whatever it can tell me, I put it up there. If I find that it's getting too cluttered, I might change my mind, but I haven't gotten there yet. And if you want to see what it looks like, it'll show you on the sample here. And less does nothing for me. Normal isn't bad. And you can see in this particular view, there's not a whole lot of difference between normal and more because there's not much around right here. All right. One of the nice things you'll notice, like I said, you could scroll using your finger, or you can scroll using the up and down arrows. Map theme, there are different themes that you could choose. That's just the way the screen looks. I've looked at the other two that are provided in here, not particularly fond of them. And there's different ones. You could, I just stay with the Garmin standard, but if you want to see what one looks like, you know, you can see how it changes a little bit. Something that you would have to play with yourself and see how it affects the screen, not over a camera. Map layers. This brings in other features that you may want on or off. Bird's eye, let's see. So Bird's eye, I haven't used. It allows you to bring in images, so like satellite images, and overlay it on your map. You have to choose what areas you want. It's small sections. It takes up space on the memory on the unit. So I don't use this. I don't know necessarily where I'm going to be or how much I'm going to want. I may try it one time just to say I did it, but I've never needed it because I don't, when I'm riding, I don't need to see satellite view when I'm riding. The topo will give you some topographical view. It'll give you the topo lines, and it's hard to see. They're not really showing up on here. You'd have to try it on your own. Maybe in daylight mode, it'll work better. But if you don't want it taking up space on the screen, you can turn it off. You could choose to have the up ahead places always displayed. That's an option. 3D terrain I do put on because I kind of like to have that in the background as opposed to the topo settings. I also have traffic enabled so that if there are any traffic related issues, it will pop it up on the screen. I don't care about parking, travel history. Custom maps don't necessarily need to be on. I had used that once and it's still on. Same thing with these other, there's the contour lines. That's why we probably didn't see it. And still not seeing it. All right. So you can play with the settings there and pick what you want. Auto zoom is the next one, and I like using it. What it does is auto zoom will zoom in closer as you start to get to a turn point of your route. And then if you've got longer distance between turns, it'll zoom out so you see a bigger part of your route. So I like auto zoom. Skip next stop confirmation. So there are times where you may want to skip a stop or a waypoint. Let's say you changed your route midstream, you made a wrong turn, right? But instead of going back to hit one of the waypoints that's in your route, you're just going to bypass it and go to the next one. You can either have the GPS ask you to prompt you to say, yes, you want to skip it, or it can skip it automatically. So if you check the box, it'll give you a confirmation to forcibly skip it. My maps just shows what's installed. And then there are the related items on the bottom. And these are just things that it thinks you may want to know about jumping into the configuration what we did. And navigation. So here the navigation lets you set the different route preferences. Oh, wrong button. Come on, sorry. Yeah, I've jumped all around. I lost it. All right. So navigation will set different route preferences, faster, shorter, things like that. Traffic mode, we'll put it into what traffic mode you want. And then there are multiple ways to get to these different settings.
Hey, Steve, we might just want to spend a little bit of time on the navigation, the route preferences. I think that has the avoidances in there, and that plays into if you have, for instance, I don't want to ride on dirt roads, and somebody that's organizing a ride is an ADV guy, he might have you on stone roads. And if you have that avoidance checked and you're trying to run that route that you downloaded, it might not let you on that road.
Right. So these are the avoidances that are, you can see here, starting from the bottom: unpaved roads, carpool lanes, ferries, highways, and U-turns. Typically, my avoidances are U-turns and dirt roads. I want to make the decision to make a U-turn or not, and I don't want to keep getting reminded by the GPS, because sometimes I'll look and see there's a road coming up where I could actually make the turn and then reconnect back onto my route. I find that a lot easier, especially when I've got a group of riders behind me, than to try to make a U-turn. So, and then get back here. All right, cancel out of this mode. Calculation time, that's what I was telling you: faster, straight line, shorter distance. All right. off route calculation. So if you go off route, you can have it automatically recalculate for you, or you could turn it off so it doesn't recalculate at all, or it'll ask you if you want to recalculate or not. And again, it's a personal preference depending on how complex the route is, if depending on how you build it, because some GPX files that you'll load, depending on what source they come from, if you tell it to recalculate, it may blow your point-to-point routing out of the water. It really depends on, there are different flavors of GPX. While GPX format is a generic format, some have more detail in it than others, and I am not going into GPX files at all. It's a complex it's a complex topic. But I would tell you that different programs generate different GPX files. And I know somebody at one point posted up a message saying, hey, just use Google Maps and send the GPX file and to your phone, to your GPS unit. Google only sets the beginning and the start and end point. And all that nice programming you may have done in Google Maps doesn't get to your Garmin. So keep that stuff in mind when you're playing with it. You can do custom avoidances, so that's what happens when you get a smart notification. So an email comes in. So you can set areas to avoid or roads to avoid. So those would be custom. And I've never used it. I've never seen a need for it.
Yeah, where that comes in, if you have some roads that you really want to avoid, like the Schuylkill Expressway or something in Philadelphia, you can put those in there, and whatever you try to navigate, that's when you set in an address and a destination and not using Basecamp. It will keep you off those roads.
All right, toll roads is again allow or not allow, environmental zones. I've never had it pop up and ask, so I'm not quite sure what they mean by it. So I just leave it in this always ask mode, waiting for the first time to pop up. Restricted mode. This is one that you want to make sure that is not enabled. You don't get a checkbox there, because if there's a checkbox, it won't let you use a lot of the functionality of the GPS. That's that don't use a GPS while you're moving button. You make sure that's unchecked. And then the neat one, especially while you're learning to use your GPS and with routes, is simulator. This way here, you can actually put it into simulator mode. You don't have to be moving. If you have a route in there, it'll actually move you through the route and show you how it will navigate. And it's a good tool if you're just learning, or you want to see how a particular route's going to react. All right. So we talked about wireless networks. That was the Bluetooth, both Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. If you want to use Bluetooth, make sure that it's enabled. Right now, you can see that it's connected to my phone. It will automatically connect as soon as the GPS is turned on. So that's why messages are coming to my phone. It's trying to connect to my Scala, but my Scala is in the garage. It's turned off, so it won't connect. If somebody wants to see how that works, I could always bring my helmet up for one of the other sessions, and I could do it. The smartphone services is the services that uses Garmin Drive. We're getting the data, emails and texts and stuff like that from your phone. Driver assistance. This is the one I was mentioning that sort of emulates the Spot device that Steve has, and some other stuff. So the rider alerts will give you areas that have animal crossings, railroad crossings, schools, curves, things that you may want to know about. Speeding alert. You'll get a tone when you're exceeding the speed limit. My default is off. Reduce speed tone. This is when you're going to be coming in.
We never do that, Steve. Ever.
No, we don't. I don't need it. That's why I shut it off. Reduce speed tone. This is when you're coming into a speed zone, or a town where the speed limit is dropping. I do enable that as a reminder. There's a route, having a route preview. So whenever you're starting a route, it'll give you a little preview of the route that you created. I do that. Brake planning is disabled. I don't use it right now. Automatic incident detection. This is the spot item. So if it detects an incident, it will do something. And we could look at that if somebody's really interested. Another time we could bring up the incident detection stuff. Proximity alerts. So if you're getting close to a POI is point of interest, or a red light camera, it'll give you an alert on those. I'm going to avoid anytime we get to related items because you're going to see that stuff all over. All right. Wireless camera, I don't have, but this model does support a Garmin wireless camera. So if you want to put one of the wireless cameras, say, on the back of your bike pointing backwards, you can go into wireless camera, and I believe it will show you what's the camera's picking up behind you. Never used it, but the features.
It will. It's like a backup camera.
Yeah, that's what I figured. All right, display. Whenever you get into display settings, this is everything to do about display. So you can set your orientation. And when it's in auto mode, that's when it'll flip if you hold it a certain way. So if I pick it up and hold it differently, you'll notice how it changed. I'll flip it back to landscape and it'll change. I tend to use it in auto mode unless I have issues. Color mode, day, night, or auto. Again, I told you I use it in auto, but if I went to day mode, it's going to just brighten up the display. And I'm going to leave it in day mode right now for display purposes, because you'll be able to see things a little bit better. You could pick the brightness of your display. You could pick the timeout. So if you're not using it, you can have a timeout and it'll shut down the display. Screenshot mode, I was telling you about. If you turn this on, it'll put that camera in the upper right-hand corner. So now you can take screenshots. Traffic mode. Traffic is enabled, but the Garmin Drive app is required. If you have other providers and subscriptions, you could choose that. Optimizing the route based on traffic information, I leave it on request. I don't want it to do it on its own. But I have been riding where its traffic information is found that there's a sufficient delay ahead, and it would ask me if I wanted to attempt a route around the traffic. I thought that was kind of cool. It's only happened to me once. Traffic alerts. You get to choose which traffic alerts. So you could have no traffic alerts, basic ones, or minor and severe. I just leave it on that. Traffic alerts could be delays, accidents, anything to do that it would, the traffic data that comes over would think that it's important, or not even important. Like if it's minor, I just have it throw everything up. If it starts becoming annoying, I'll start cutting it back to basic. But I like to know what it can do and what kind of information it can give me. And I'm still learning. Units and time, it allows you to just choose the basics, right? Set the current time, 12 or 24-hour format, miles or kilometers, your position format. Language and keyboard, and I'm not going to go in that, it's basic stuff. Device information, privacy settings. So if you want to know about your software licenses, about your device, things like that, this is where you would go. Make sure, see if we covered all of the setting stuff. Yeah, I covered the basics. So what I want to do is, with the time remaining, it does not connect the Waze. Yeah, well, day mode at night is too bright. But day mode does, unfortunately for the camera, work a lot better, because my camera tends to jump all over the place without sufficient light. All right. What I wanted to do was just do a real simple nav for folks who haven't done it. So we're going to do a where to. bring up an address, and right now it's in motorcycle mode, right? And it comes up wanting to know the house number, so it knows it's a number and it's looking for that. So you can enter in just like a normal any other garment. You can enter that in. Instead of doing this, I'm going to go and try to pick up a city. See if I can have those here. Nah, I'll do an address. All right. So okay. So it knows it's out of the mount. It's giving me a full screen, the full QWERTY keyboard. There is also a mode on the motorcycle mode where you wind up getting larger buttons, and it splits the QWERTY keyboard up. Okay, so now we have the left side of the keyboard and the right side of the keyboard. So this way here, it makes it easier with gloved fingers to access. And if you need to get to numbers, you get your numbers. If you need to get to your special characters, you get to your special characters. All right. I can switch back to full mode. And
You can see it's populating suggestions there for you too. So
yeah,
you don't have to type the whole word sometimes.
yeah, and it may not find this because this is in a different state. We're going to see what happens. Look at that. Now it pops up here. It's 43 miles. By the way, the distance here is 43 miles as the crow flies. That is not by road. You could bring up a map right here and just get an overview of where it is. You could see if it is actually where you're thinking it is or not. You can return back to the listing display, or right from here, I could say go. And now it'll calculate to that point, set up the route, and then give me some basic information about the route here on this side. So how long it's going to take, the actual road mileage, and a quick synopsis of the roads that are being taken, right? The major roads. So for me, it'd be I-84, 684, and then Route 35. If I clicked on that, it brought me into the actual route, right? Right. So when you're routing, some of the things that you could do by clicking the top menu information, where it's displaying the next point, clicking that will give you the list of turns, and you could scroll down and pick any particular turn, and it'll actually bring you on a close-up zoom view of that road, and then tell you how far in time and miles it is to that point.
Steve, do you want to talk about the avoidances, but also the curvy road feature at this point?
Yeah, nah. We'll do basic stuff here. We can get into that another time. This is the layers button. Layers, by bringing this up, you get to choose between north up, track up, or 3D. You could turn on the topo or the other views. Hit the X to close it. The three buttons at the bottom, or the ellipses, this brings up additional features. So it's like a more button. So it'll bring up the menu of items that you could do while you're en route. We'll cover this another time. By clicking on the time, you get to, that's a field that you could set to what you want. So right now, arrival time is the item I have set, but you could choose between these other items to populate that field. It's a programmable field. Clicking on the speed brings up the track recorder, right, and the information. And then the zoom out and zoom in. So that's basic controls when you're in a route. And if I was moving, it would start to do the basic navigation. If I'm navigating and I'm still in the route, because you can notice the stop is now not gray anymore. I'm still in here, and I'm going to do a where to, and I'm going to go to come on. I'm just going to enter in another city. And I want to go, Southbury Township is 10 miles away. So I'm going to say, yep, that's where I want to go. And, usually, maybe because I went out of my active route. Usually if you do that and you're in an active route, it'll ask you to create a new route to that town or to add it as a stop along the way. By messing with some of the buttons, I think I jumped out of the active route. Yeah. No, I'm actually still in it. Strange.
Yeah, it'll do a similar thing with gas stops. If you
Yeah.
choose a gas stop, it'll add that to your
But
navigation.
there's a way to, yeah. As if I got, so here I'll just pick one that I have saved. And if I say go, now here it is. So you have to get into, you have to choose where you want to go to, say go, and you get the options of start as a no route, add it as the next stop, add as the last stop. So if I add it as the next, that puts it in the current route and makes it my next stop. So that's a way to add points if you're doing all your navigation purely on the GPS itself. All right. I think we got, now I'm going to cancel my active route by pressing stop. And now it's not routing anymore. I think we'll stop here because we're 3 minutes to the hour. And we'll let you open up the mics and ask some questions on things that we've covered so far. So don't forget to unmute. Is the mute locked, Steve?
Looking at that.
No, you guys can unmute yourselves if you got questions.
Here, I'm going to allow them to
Yeah.
unmute. There we go. All right. Lyle looks like he's unmuted.
Yep, sure am.
All right. So is anybody getting excited about buying an XT, or are you learning new things about the one you already have?
Already got it. Learning new stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I'm thinking I need to buy an XT now. So this whole thing is costing me money.
Yeah, I like it. I had a 550 before, so I skipped over a few generations.
Yeah.
But it's real nice.
Yeah, one thing we should mention, and this is just a disclaimer for safety, pressing the buttons and all that is great and fun, but when you're riding, it's not so much recommended. So always ride the motorcycle first.
Mhm.
I think anybody's had a GPS had an oh shit moment at some point where it's like just ride the motorcycle, because you can really like go down a rabbit hole trying to change something or fix something.
Yeah.
And you forget you're riding like 60 miles an hour on a motorcycle. So
That's right, Bill.
Yeah. So who's donating the DXT for the drawing? That's what I want to know. And Bob, if you contact Garmin and they want to do a group purchase, I bet you would find a lot of members that would jump on that. So, but they're selling these things like hotcakes, especially when they put them on sale. This is the app screen, and I know somebody asked what other apps there are. So we talked about these few here. Tracks and Traffic were the last ones I showed, but here are some more. Round Trip is one that I want to try more. Steve actually told me about it. I had never used it. I had it on my 660 and didn't play with it. Round Trip is a kind of a neat thing where if you have a destination, so you could basically program it and say, I have a destination, or I have a direction, or I have a distance, or a combination of a couple of those things. And you can use the round trip function to say, I want to head north and I want to do a 200-mile trip. And it'll just pick roads heading north for, and getting you home doing 200 miles total. Or you're going to say, I want to go to Bob's Diner, and it'll get you to Bob's Diner and then home, and it'll pick it'll pick roads based on how you have your GPS configured. So if you
Mm.
had it set to curvy roads, it'll pick curvy roads to get you there. And it may be an interesting way to find new roads that you haven't taken before
Yeah,
without
and
having to program it. on
yeah,
the
if it's
space
like
camp.
Saturday afternoon and you just don't know where to ride, I sometimes just punch in 80 miles and go. And you don't, when you leave your driveway, you don't know if your next turn's left, right, straight, wherever, and you just have no clue. So it sort of makes it interesting.
This one here is also a neat feature. I have not used it, but I've read up on it a little bit, and this is kind of cool. If you have other XT users nearby, you can actually share a route that you have with them using Bluetooth. So you could also share routes using Garmin Drive. So we could, if there's really strong interest in that, maybe that would be a significantly later session, or one that we do after I've had time to really seriously play with them. I've not had anybody else with an XT ride with me that I needed to share it with, and I'm not spending another $400 just to figure out how to use it.
Yeah. Hey, Steve, can you go back to that round trip again? Just show the options. Like you just walk through a couple of the options. So
Right,
like
so
the
you're gonna
trip
do,
attributes.
all right, so you would need to set your start location, and I'll choose where I am now,
Your driveway, yeah.
my driveway. Yep. All right, then you set your trip attributes. You could choose a distance, you could choose a duration, or you could choose a destination. All right, so I'm just going to go with choosing a distance. And how far do I want to ride? I'm going to do a 200-mile ride. I'm going to add a direction. You can say any direction, or you could do north, south, east, or west.
I like the any direction because it surprises the heck out of me.
Yeah. I could tell you that from where I live, if I head south, I'm heading to one of the larger cities in New Haven, which is New Haven, Connecticut. And, you know, unless I want to go visit Bob Clancy, there's nothing south that I
Yeah, good
want to go to
point.
except work. So for me, I'm either going to go north and again, or west, because even east, which means I'm going to go across Connecticut, I'm going through crappy roads to get to the better roads. I'd rather go north or west, which is going to put me into upstate Connecticut or into New York, which I'm going to get way better riding. So anyway, so now we've entered our parameters. When you do, and we just say calculate, let it do its thing, and the slider at the bottom actually will change the level of adventurous riding, right, or routing.
Oh my gosh.
So
It makes it cool.
Yeah, so I've got it all the way to the right, which means make it as adventurous as possible. And it's taking a while. It's thinking it out.
Steve, when it calculates this adventurous ride, can you then share it?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Well, if
Get
you
it-
wrote
get
it,
some-
if
somebody
you
get
wrote
next
it, you
people
could
try it.
save your tracks. You could
Yeah.
save it that way.
Yeah,
That would only be after you wrote it.
I'm gonna speed this up.
It's putting a lot of effort into giving
It
you the
is.
greatest ride.
It is. It's 200 miles, so it's going to take a bit. And I've got a lot of roads around here. So anyway, you get the idea of it. And then the buttons here will allow you to change things, view things. Once it's ready, you can go, and then you just follow it like you would any other route.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll give you an example of how I used that one time, and it was an awesome ride. We were staying with a friend, and it was a weekend, and he didn't want to ride that day. So me and another friend had no idea what was around his house because we weren't familiar with the area. So we ran this round trip, and it took us out and on great roads and brought us back. And we didn't have to do any thinking. We just followed the GPS.
Yeah. So there's the route. You can see it, the purple line. So it's heading north and west. So it's bringing me up through the Litchfield Hills in upstate Connecticut, the northwest corner, which is okay to ride in, and then over into Dutchess and Columbia counties of New York, which is some of my favorite roads. I grew up in New York, south of there, but I know the roads north because those are my my road tripping roads, both in cars and motorcycles. And it actually looked like it is staying on the east side of the river. I'd need to zoom in. But the only thing about this I don't like is it's going through Albany, which means it's going to put me through a little bit of traffic in that Albany area. So I would probably modify this a little bit. But anyway, the options here.
That doesn't look like it goes up to Albany.
What's that?
Doesn't look like it goes quite up to Albany.
Well, you could zoom in and find out. Yep, you're right. It doesn't.
Buck had a question there. I don't know if you saw it. Does it always give you a different route back?
Each time you would ask for it, no, it may calculate the same route. And that's why using the different levels of adventure or picking different destinations with different distances, we do it. I suspect the algorithm in there, it doesn't know what it did the last time. So the algorithm is going to try to do the same thing, right?
Yeah, you want to add at least one variable in there somewhere.
And I'm trying to remember. Do you remember these other buttons?
Yeah, that's the
this one
curvy
gives you
road.
yeah, that just shows you the altitudes of the route that it's choosing, so you could see how it changes over the course of the ride, and it tells you how long the ride's going to be. So I punched in 200 miles. It's actually 211, and it's 5 hours and 17 minutes of ride time based on the speed limits. And then this allows you to edit the route. So if you don't like what it did, you can go into this mode and drag points and edit it, which I'm not going to get into. Just trying to show you, but that's a nifty feature. And if you want to go with choose duration, you could do it based on time or destination. You'd pick, a location. Could be a city, a diner, whatever the waypoint that you have programmed in. So there's lots of options that you can choose for the destination.
I have a question, Steve. If you go back there, you got the list there. You said you could change where the icons are. As an example, go up further up top.
Yeah, what are you talking about? The icons mean of what's displayed on the map?
Yeah, like the phone.
Yep.
Okay, mine is way the hell down there. Way down the list on the second page. You say you can change.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk
How
about
do you do that?
Okay. Really easy. Press and hold. And once it's changed the color, you could drag it.
Okay.
And then you drop it to where you want it. Really
Good.
easy. That function on any screen that you can organize works that same way. So you basically press and not go into it. Press, hold. When it changes away from that yellow screen, then you can drag it wherever you want, and it's going to move things around. So just be cautious of how you do it, because it may change the order of other items anyway you drag it. But it's a great feature to drag stuff that's on the bottom up to top. See, as you notice, phone is on the bottom. That's where it's default. And I did not like it there. If you really mess it up bad, you can always come over here into options, hit reset, and it'll put it back to factory reset. Any other questions on stuff that we've covered? Somebody had asked about the mixer before. So here are some of the things that you can mix. Navigation, media, phone calls, proximity alerts. Those are the items that are in the mixer. Things that you could disable and enable, spoken nav, traffic alerts, or button presses. So you don't have to hear the click.
Just had a quick comment.
Yep.
Earlier, when you had the route in and then we're trying to add a city, and you didn't get the results you expected, I think it was because you didn't pick a location in the
Correct.
city, like a gas station. I think then it would have given you the menu that you're expecting, like
Nah,
put it,
yeah, you're right, Marty. What it was is I chose to see it on the map, but I didn't choose to go. I never clicked go to on it. And once you say go to that waypoint, then it'll give you the option to either add it or create a new route. And all
Oh,
I did
okay.
was bring it up on the map. So I forgot one step. And we're jumping into a lot of stuff. I wasn't really expecting to go to that feature. But so what else? What type of things would you like to see? Because I figure we're going to probably have at least another session, maybe two, just using the GPS standalone. So what other things would people want to learn about?
Steve, since you mentioned other things, how does it mount to the bike and how does it make electrical connection?
So
Yeah, we
Good
did
question.
cover that last
We-
week.
Oh,
yeah, we
I'm
covered
sorry.
that last.
Yeah.
So
I have a 660, which
okay. So it's very similar to the 660. So on your
Okay.
660, your mount has those 2 rows of 5 pins, right?
yes,
Okay. On the back of this, and not enough light. Hang on. All right. This is the back of the unit.
okay,
Right? It's only got 1 row of 5 pins on the back here. So very different interface. But that's where it picks up power and other things. And the cable, just like your 660, it's got a cable that's power and ground. And then that connector goes up into your mount to provide power to this. The other pins aren't used. I think only power and ground is used on the cable that they give you at the unit. The other thing, let me get some light down here. The other thing, while we're looking at the back, for folks to see, this ring that's around here, there's an inner edge on that's got an angle to it. The mount clips into that. And it may not look sturdy, but I've yet to have it release. It holds in there pretty good, considering it's very easy to come in and out. The power button is up here. This unit does have a standby mode. So if you just push it, it'll go into a shutdown mode, into a low power mode. But if you push and hold it for 3 to 5 seconds, you'll get a display up that says turn off. And that puts it into a deep power sleep, or off, that requires the power button to be pressed. Under these sealed covers, this is where the SD card goes if you want to add more memory. We'll talk about that SD card more when we connect up to the computer and how that's used. And the other door here is the USB port, and it's using a USB mini. And this could be used to charge the battery, provide power to the unit, or connect it up to your computer. In the car, when I put it on a mount, and somebody had mentioned up on Roger, I don't know if he made it, but Roger sent us an email earlier because he wasn't sure if he's going to show up or not. Roger, are you on? All right. So his point was that he's got the auto mount, and he says it doesn't, the suction cup doesn't stick well to his dashboard because it's got a texture. I believe that the Garmin suction cup mount, as well as, say, the Ram suction cup mount, is meant to adhere to a smooth surface like glass. So I only use that suction cup mount in the car where I'm not worried about it. It releases and falls, because then it'll only fall on my lap. But I've never had my Ram suction cup that I use this fall off my windshield in the car. All right, let me turn this off because I can't see the display with the lights. Any other questions? All right, how about topics for our next session? Anybody have anything? I could dive into other stuff, but if you have things you want to hear or see, I'd be happy to take some pointers and bring that into it.
Steve?
Yes.
maybe you could compare the difference between tracks and waypoints.
So that's a good one. I'd like to do that.
Yeah, I think when we're
Uh,
into base camp, we can cover
Yeah, I'd
that.
like to do that with Basecamp.
Okay,
Yeah.
Because-
Yeah, I think the next session, we're going to focus on getting everybody pointed towards the Garmin Express, where to
Yeah.
find the download, figure out who's using Macs, who's using PCs, and get you comfortable with running that update utility and then updating the firmware